This episode of Marijuana Today Daily is brought to you by the Ohm of Medicine Medical Marijuana Provisioning Center of Ann Arbor, Michigan. If you're lucky enough to live in or near Ann Arbor, you owe it to yourself to swing by the Ohm of Medicine to see how medical marijuana provisioning should be done. Ohm has a super patient-centric focus in all the things they do, which you'll likely notice as soon as you step in the door at Ohm at their new ground floor location on South Main Street in Ann Arbor. There's no sales pressure when you talk to one of Ohm's well-educated and trained staff, just the care that you get the medical marijuana products that make you feel best. You'll have all the time you need to peruse the products up for offer with one of Ohm's experts in their unique one-on-one office setting. To find out more about Ohm, just visit ohmofmedicine.org, which is spelled omofmedicine.org. That's ohmofmedicine.org. Good morning, Marijuana Nation. It's Thursday, September 27th, 2018, and you're tuned in to episode 579 of Marijuana Today Daily. I'm your host, Shay Gunther, and I'll be walking you through today's marijuana news and headlines. As always, we have a full and busy day of cannabis news in our hands, so let's jump right into it. Our top story today starts us off up in Canada, where the Ontario provincial government just released some updated rules for marijuana as the country tilts towards the October 17th switchover to legalized adult use marijuana. One of the bigger updates is the change that will allow cannabis to be consumed anywhere tobacco is allowed. That will give Ontario the most progressive public cannabis consumption policy in the world, at least on paper, as it's not like there are a lot of public places where you can still smoke tobacco in Canada. At the very least, though, it does free up Ontarians to consume marijuana in their homes and the few places where cigarettes are still allowed. Another change announced yesterday will limit licensed producers to opening up just one single dispensary each in the province, though no overall cap on the number of shops was set. Not a bad story to open up for the full read. Another big giant adult beverage corporation has talked about its plans to get into the business of drinkable marijuana. This time, it's Molson Coors CEO Mark Hunter, who on Tuesday hinted at his company's cannabis ambitions in an appearance on Bloomberg television. Mr. Hunter talked about Canada being a valuable place to test market ideas and said that the future of beverages included both THC and CBD infused into teas and seltzer. There have been a number of big deals between beverage companies and legal cannabis, led by the mega deal that saw Corona maker Constellation Brands invest billions of dollars into Canadian marijuana company Canopy Growth. Tom Angel snags headline number 3 today with a regular dispatch from the Republican-controlled House of Representatives, where rabid prohibitionist Congressman Pete Sessions of Texas has blocked yet another good progressive cannabis-related bill. This time, one that would have allowed legal marijuana companies to deduct all the regular business expenses other legitimate companies get to enjoy at tax time. This very long-running storyline is wrapped around the bit of federal tax code known as 280E, which was written in the 1980s to prevent drug dealers from writing off the costs of fancy boats, beachside houses, and Miami Vice suits. Provision 280E has stuck around and is responsible for legal marijuana companies paying effective tax rates north of 70%. A new amendment introduced by Colorado Congressman Jared Polis would have changed that, but as Tom is reporting, Representative Sessions stepped in, as he has done every single time a good cannabis bill has come before him, and used his power as chair of the Rules Committee to prevent it from further consideration. Those are our top stories for today. It's time for Marijuana Today Daily Headlines Blitz. Before we blitz on headlines, let's quickly thank our sponsor, the Ohm of Medicine Medical Marijuana Provisioning Center of Ann Arbor, Michigan. One of Ohm's owners, Mark, asked me to mention the Green Wolverine Science Symposium, a very cool event that Ohm is supporting that's happening this Saturday, September 29th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. on the campus of the University of Michigan. The Green Wolverine Science Symposium is focused on cannabis science and will feature some of the top minds in marijuana medicine, research, and technology, including Dr. Sue Sisley and the Ohm of Medicine's own Dr. Evan, one of the few full-time on-staff dispensary doctors in the industry. Dr. Evan is Ohm's chief medical officer and will be up on stage sharing some of the medical marijuana wisdom he's accrued over the years while working at Ohm. You can learn more about this event and all the others that Ohm supports and hosts over at ohmofmedicine.org/events, with Ohm of Medicine spelled OMOF medicine.org. That's ohmofmedicine.org/events. All right, time for the Blitz. On Tuesday, Alaska's Anchorage Assembly voted 8-3 to suspend the cultivation license of Alaska Sense LLC, which operates both a cultivation facility as well as a dispensary operating under the name Cannabaska. This suspension only covers their cultivation operations and comes after state inspectors found that the company did not properly dispose of marijuana waste from the grow process. State law requires that all leftovers from cultivation be rendered fully unusable. Maybe not a bad example of a bit of regulatory overreach on this one. Dan Adams over at the Boston Globe picked up on some friction in Beantown over the annual Boston Freedom Rally, which sees thousands and thousands of marijuana and hemp fans fill in Boston Common for 3 days of rallies, speeches, and lots of cannabis consumption. Dan is reporting that Boston Mayor Marty Walsh and a few members of the city council are complaining about the impacts of this year's Freedom Rally and are suggesting that it be moved to a new location next year, something that the event's organizers are dismissing as a non-starter. This is a good one to read in full. Picking up on the long-running storyline of driving while high, we find ourselves back up in Canada, where the Canadian press has a good story about the hesitancy some Canadian police departments are having over the use of an officially sanctioned machine meant to test for the presence of marijuana metabolites in drivers' saliva. The Dragger Drug Test 5000, which sounds like the first possible name they came up with, has been criticized by some Canadian cops as being unworkable in the field as the temperatures turn low. There's also the fact that the science of testing people for cannabis impairment is hugely unsettled, leaving lots of avenues for possible legal challenges should police departments choose to deploy the Drug Test 5000. This issue is universal to the United States, so I'd also add this one to your list to read today. The state of New Hampshire has revised upward its estimate on how much tax revenue could be generated from the legalization of adult-use marijuana. Officials with the New Hampshire Department of Revenue Administration say that their most recent model uses new data out of New York State and pegs the range of possible annual tax revenue at anywhere from $15 million up to just under $58 million, depending on the exact tax rate set. New Hampshire currently has a limited medical marijuana program, but does not allow adult use sales, even though it's now surrounded on all sides by states that do, or Canada, which will next month. So the pressure is on in the Granite State. Some robbers in Colorado Springs, Colorado are sitting pretty today after a late-night robbery of a marijuana dispensary on Tuesday, in which they got away with a pile of dispensary t-shirts and a lot of herb. Unfortunately for the robbers, unless they also happened to be criminals in the kitchen, it was the wrong kind of herb. A Native Roots dispensary in Colorado Springs was hit late Tuesday night, and I do mean hit, by robbers who smashed a stolen van through its storefront. The robbers tumbled out into the breached store and scooped up everything in sight, which included t-shirts and in-store cannabis displays that, unbeknownst to them at the time, used oregano as a stand-in for marijuana. The robbers sped off in a getaway car and are hopefully today spicing up a nice batch of bolognese, as they have not yet been abducted. A proposed marijuana cultivation facility planned by Canadian licensed marijuana provider Aurora Cannabis is going to cost a little more than expected. In a filing with regulatory authorities, Aurora said that its Aurora Sky cultivation facility would cost $150 million Canadian, up from an earlier estimate of $110 million. When fully built out by 2019, the facility is projected to be able to turn out over 17,000 pounds of marijuana per month, with a production price below $1 Canadian per gram. And finally for today, Chris Wallace over at Marijuana Moments picked up on a thread over at Reddit from a guy in Canada who noticed that the licensed marijuana company Tweed, which is owned by Canopy Growth, just filed a trademark application for, quote, Chronic by Dre, unquote, hinting at a cannabis-related deal with rapper, producer, and entrepreneur Dr. Dre. Those are the headlines and news for the day. I'll be back with you tomorrow morning with another information-packed episode of Marijuana Today Daily. But in the meantime, if you have any stories to share or feedback to give, zip us an email to headlines@mjtodaydaily.com. And while you're clicking around the interwebs, swing over to our Twitter account at mjtodaydaily and visit our website at mjtodaydaily.com to find links to all the news we cover. Thanks to our sponsor, the Ohm of Medicine, and to all of our awesome patron listeners for the support that makes this show possible. To join the illustrious ranks of the patron listeners yourself, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com and click on that big blue button at the top of the page that says Become a Patron. I'm your host, Jay Gunther. Thanks for tuning in, starting your day with marijuana today. Today.
One take, Shay. One take.